to the green flag. How are they going to start? Well, Cristiano D'Amato, we've spoken about him a good deal already. 6th pole of the year. Dario Franchitti flanks him on the outside. He's won in Canada this year. Bruno Junqueira and Patrick Carpentier are in the next row. They're tied for 2nd in the championship, share 3 victories this season.
Kenny Breck was fastest in the warm-up. Jimmy Vasser, his best start in 9 races. Remember, these two guys have hit each other twice in the first corner this year.
Scott Dixon, who's had some gearbox problems this weekend, had some earlier today, but he starts in the next row. Alex Tagliani on the outside, coming off a 2nd at Road America. You know he's feeling racy today. A couple of F1 starts here for Shinji Nakano back in the 90s. He finished 6th and 7th, knows the course. And Paul Tracy, which car will we get for the race? He was very good in the warm-up, not so good in qualifying yesterday. A little unhappy with where he is.
Christian Fittipaldi also unhappy, just couldn't put a lap together in qualifying, and Tora Takagi had braking issues. They think they have that fixed.
Difficult year for Tony Kanaan, who anchors the next row, but he's coming off 4th at Road America. Maybe he has a chance to move up through the field. And Oriol Servia on the outside. 4th race with Patrick Racing since he joined that team. Michel Jourdain, points in every race for him this year. Only one in the field to do that. Adrian Fernandez on the outside, playing in pain, as we had mentioned. Mario Dominguez on the inside of the last row. And there's Michael Andretti, same position he was in Toronto, unfortunately for him, at the back of the pack, Jan.
Yeah, but I talked to him this morning. He says, you know, I had a lot of trouble, but the car is good. So there is still hope for Michael to move through the field.
Christian Fittipaldi, he was in the pits, I understand. Let's go down to Todd Lewis.
Christian Fittipaldi unhappy with his starting position. Well, even less happy now. He had a problem with his steering wheel display, namely which gear he was in. They brought him in during those pace laps. They hope they have the connection fixed now. Christian Fittipaldi was unable to see by looking at his wheel which gear he had selected.
Yeah, and you're taking a very close look as we watch on board with Christian Fittipaldi to see how much of the display may or may not be there.
Yeah, I still don't see it. It would be in the very center of the top of the wheel. He's adjusting the fuel mixture there with the left hand, and the gear selector should be right up top, and I don't see it, so he's going to be flying a little bit blind here today. Of course, I mean, the drivers get used to what gear they're in. The only time you really need that is when you get in trouble and you have to go through into a gear you're not used to, and then you get out of rhythm.
They're back on the straightaway as they move back toward the pits and the pit straight here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is Paul Tracy, and you're looking at his wheel as well, John.
Yeah, now we know Paul's is working. It may just be the angle right in the center. That is a difficult. See, everyone's going for the fuel mixture, get ready. They want to get ready for the start and make sure they have full fuel when it's time to stand on it.
And the 21 in the middle of the wheel indicates how long you can go before you must pit. On board again with Patrick Carpentier on the outside of row number 2. He is in front of the pits right now. And then we switch to Alex Tagliani. Really, the only way to tell the difference between the two is the top of the helmet. They're a little bit different, although you get some similar color tones even from the helmets these days between those two. And Adrian Fernandez, who's a little further back, now occupying the same straightaway that we saw a moment ago while we rode with the others.
Michael Andretti.
It's Michael Andretti going in.
He's done this before. And that's not for fuel.
Nope.
Anytime they have the starter, that's not a good sign.
They brought out the inertial starter, and he's sitting there kind of quiet in the pits right now as they look back to the pit stand. Michael may be talking to someone up there trying to figure some problem out.
What they've done is they've connected the data line. That is the only line that they connected. That goes back to the computers, and right now, if there is a potential engine problem, the computers will tell them. So that's what they're all looking back at the timing stand for. What does the computer say?
And the rest of the field pulling rapidly away. Here comes Michael out of the pits. Now he's going to have to try and catch up. He'll be at the back of the pack regardless, but can he get to the pack and at least join up with the start, or is he going to have a further deficit by a couple, 3 turns before he gets around there? What are they up to? About 5 and 6 right now, coming up to the back of the course, about a half a lap away from Michael at the moment.
That is curious. I don't want to. I'm wondering if there's a little hanky-panky there in that. I wonder if you'd come into the pits and look like you're downloading data so you can hang back, and then right now he can really stand on and get some real heat into the tires and be ready for the start.
But and see if he can pick up some quick position.
You never know. I guess that's my racer hat being on, right?
Yeah. In the cockpit, you would think of that for sure. We'll wait and see how it plays out in terms of Michael Andretti. Let's take a look at the wheel of Christian Fittipaldi again. Looks about the same to me.
I mean, you can see some of the red lights, but just the way the sun is, it's difficult to tell from the very center top of the wheel whether he has the gear indicator. But like I said, these guys get in a rhythm. It shouldn't be too big of a deal.
And we have some indication from people in the pits that maybe Michael had a display problem as well. So whether or not he's flying by the seat of his pants, we'll know shortly. Meantime, they begin to work their way back toward the front. On the straightaway, there is the front row that's going to be forming up. Jim Swintel, the starter, at the far end of the pit straight. He'd like half or more of the field on this straight in 2x2 formation before he drops the green. He's got just about that now as they swing around the corner and set up. This is nicely done so far, and the green is out. We are racing in Montreal. That was a beautiful formation start as they move into the first corner. D'Amata takes the inside. Tucking in behind D'Amata is Dario Franchitti, and we have contact back in the group as it was Patrick Carpentier getting up into the third position.
And Kenny Breck is the person who took the brunt of that. He was hit by another car for certain. Kenny Breck appeared to be an innocent bystander. Man, he's had a tough season.
Patrick Carpentier picked up a spot off the start. Kenny Breck runs into another difficult moment right at the beginning of yet another race. He was just beside Jimmy Vassar. And there's Michael Andretti picking up some ground, and the car looks like it's working all right.
Absolutely, and Michael Andretti is definitely making it happen here. One of the players' cars working through as well. There's a lot of passing here in this opening lap.
There's Tagliani working with Paul Tracy, who had a good car in the warm-up this morning as they funnel through down the back part of the course. Heavy braking here. The first time through the hairpin. Single file order there. D'Amata is away from the corner briskly. So is Dario Franchitti. And here comes Patrick Carpentier. And we have a full course yellow that has been displayed, we assume, for the Kenny Breck car down in turn number 1. So they'll slow him down right away.
But boy, look at that relationship between Cristiano D'Amata and Dario Franchitti. I know they're slowing down because of the full course caution, but my goodness, if he can do that every lap, people are going to be very worried about the speed of D'Amata.
The pits, for the record, were closed as they came down that straightaway, and we understand Michael Andretti may be ducking into the pits with a puncture. Also coming in is Adrian Fernandez, and I think that, yeah, that was Michel Jourdain also has opted to go to the pits at the conclusion of lap number 1. We'll wait and see if Michael Andretti comes in. Did he? I didn't see him pull into the pits, but we did see those two cars.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a stop on course with a puncture.
Well, it's a case where the reason you would pit then is if you're at the back of the order, and sure enough, the left rear.
Yeah, the left rear is gone on Michael's car, and he's going to be able to limp it, would appear, back to his pit, but down that fast straightaway, very, very slow. And here comes Kenny Breck. Let's go downstairs to Don Martin.
Michael Andretti limping into the pits with a punctured left rear tire. It's pretty well shredded and off the rim at the moment. They'll do the fuel fill up. Michael starting at the back of the pack. They'll replace all 4 tires, and he will be back underway shortly. Michael Andretti back of the pack.
There's the replay of the contact that put Kenny Breck to the side of the road and now out of the cockpit.
Well,
is that Tagliani?
Well, there was Scott Dixon getting into the side of Kenny Breck, his teammate, but it looked like Scott Dixon was helped. There was some contact between Scott Dixon and the car on his right. Let's see. Oh, this should be perfect.
It's him just to the left.
Sure enough.
Wow. Tagliani also there.
Paul Tracy had the best seat in the house,
and he was able to avoid the contact. Michael, meantime, got what amounts to a routine pit stop and is back on course. Let's go back down to the pits and Todd Lewis.
Further update on the Kenny Breck situation. He is hot-footing it back to pit lane because his day is done. Broken suspension in that contact on the opening lap. Another early exit for Kenny Breck.
Huge disappointment once again. We saw him working to figure out this course as hard as anyone all weekend long. Out here with his motor scooter the other night after the first round of qualifying, looking for new reference points, all kinds of things.
Yeah, Kenny Breck is, I mean, he's a seasoned professional. It doesn't matter where he's starting on the racetrack. He just works and works and works. And like you said, he was out on his scooter, had his head all the way down on the handlebars, was going around trying to get a driver's perspective, seeing if there was an inch he could find here, an inch he could find there. And boy, there's nothing more frustrating than getting punted. But he thinks it's by his teammate. He doesn't know his teammate was hit by Tagliani. And he's thinking, what the heck is going on?
So under the full course yellow, working on the second lap of 80 in the event. They barely got up to speed, and now that lap is concluded by the leaders as they funnel down the pit straightaway, which is about 1,500 feet long after they come off the chicane. And then it's a right bender to the left and through that complex of corners that is called the Casino by most folks around here. A lot of casino signs around, and the 1 lap to go sign has been displayed by Jim Swintel. Again, Michelle Jourdain is in, Maria Dominguez is in. These folks are toward the back. They're topping off with fuel, getting the tires, and playing a little bit of a track position game. Although today, that's a difficult game to play the way the pit stops have been described by the rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case where, yes, they're coming in now and they're pitting, but they're still going to have to pit at least 3 more times. But it's a case of, you know what, they can go farther. If they're lucky and they catch a full course caution at the right time, then they'll look good. I mean, when you run at the back, you just try something crazy, because that's all you can do.
Now, the interesting thing will be once they get back to green, can D'Amata pull away? Because it looked as though he'd pulled out to about 30 car lengths, a good section of real estate between himself and Dario Franchitti on the straightaway just prior to the yellow flag coming out. He, as has been the case so much this year, looked like he had in mind just driving away from everyone.
Here's the overhead view. And you know what? Tagliani, I mean, that was a case where there was a bit of an accordion effect, and he had to jam on the brakes. It wasn't like Tagliani moved. It was just a case where he got squashed in the middle of a sandwich, and the back of the car stepped out, and then, of course, you've got the domino effect.
And it picked up Kenny Breck to the outside. Scott Dixon was in the vicinity, and that's that. One guy suffers most. That is Kenny Breck, who completes barely a corner, certainly not a lap, and he is retired to the garage already. Another disappointing day, leaving us with 17 runners and about to go back to green as they move through the hairpin one more time and back toward the front. This time they will go in single file. The acceleration is not expected to begin until after they get through the chicane. You can see from high overhead the weaving still underway by Cristiano D'Amata. He's picked up the throttle already, and he's going to charge through the corner. And here we go. Looking down the track, the green does come out after they exit the corner. So Jim Swintel saw the nose of the car and made his decision, and we're racing again in Montreal. We're working on lap number 4. Funneling through Casino and then up the hill. A little puff of brake smoke there as they all use the curve to varying degrees.
That's a great angle there, just to see them all stream through and show just how close the cars are and how similar the handling is. Michael Andretti, you noted there that he's picking up spots again, and he's going to be aggressive.
He picked up a couple of spots immediately after the start. Jourdain and Dominguez fell behind him. But perhaps after a display problem and a flat tire, Michael's got a car under him that he can work with.
Well, remember, those guys pitted twice, so that's why Michael would have picked up those spots, because he was behind them, and when they pitted the second time, he actually would have received those positions before he got the green.
Into the back section of the course and to the hairpin.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, can you stop? No way. Oh, hang on to it.
Alex Tagliani, a little bit of, what'd you call it, a bonsai move?
That was it.
Didn't quite work, and he gives up a lot of space, taking the risk. You talked about risk management coming into this event. Pick your spots and take your shot.
Boy, he went for it. We talked about 4 Gs on the brakes, and can you slam on the brakes later? That's exactly what he tried, but he just couldn't get it slowed down. Thankfully, there was no contact, but my, did he ever give up a lot of track position.
0.6 of a second is the lead for D'Amata over Franchitti as they conclude lap number 4. The space on the track between the two relatively close to what it was from ground level. Here he comes to the inside.
And, of course, Jimmy Vasser is going to force him down on the inside line. That's a bit of a sucker move there. In other words, get him off to where there isn't as much grip. He knows he's coming. Let him go, and there's no way you're going to be able to stop it. Watch at the speed. He will just fly by Jimmy Vasser, and just no way can you get it stopped. Thankfully, he kept the thing running. Sometimes when you're in that situation, you can't keep the engine running. And Paul Tracy has been like in the perfect spot for all these replays so far. He's getting a great ride today. Good seat.
The best seat in the house so far. He's seen some pretty good action around him. He probably held his breath a couple of times. You know he wants to get to the end of this and have a really big showing here in Montreal, as does Alex Tagliani, perhaps a little over enthusiastic in the early going. Through the hairpin one more time, coming up on the conclusion of lap number 5, up through the gearbox here, right to the top of it, and about 190 miles an hour at its maximum, just before the break point at the other end. The standings remain unchanged for the moment. D'Amata, Franchitti, Carpentier, Junqueira, and Vassar in the 5th position. On board we are with Alex Tagliani, who fell all the way back to 17th position, incidentally. So he's got the whole field to make up to get back.
Yeah, and as soon as you make that type of mistake, I mean, then you just have to, grab yourself by the collar and say, you know what? As long as I've been that aggressive, now the rest of the day I have to be that much aggressive to continue and see if maybe you can force your way through. But boy, it's a long haul from back there.
And it leads me straight into the brake question. Do you have to abuse them as part of that exercise?
Yeah, you will. I mean, but you know what? He's already taken some chances. Now he has to take more.
Coming up towards 7 and 8. One more time. Montreal in the background here. This is a corner that has bitten several folks through the weekend as they all come under the bridge. Junqueira in the 4th spot. And where we go with Paul. He's running in the 6th position. Heavy braking, kind of quiet in front of him this trip through.
Yeah. And you can see all the gear shifting. The only place on the track that you use first gear. Most racetracks you don't use first. Here you definitely do.
Under 40 miles an hour through there, right?
Yeah, 37 on Friday. They're picking up a little bit of speed, and they might be in the 40 range once they get some rubber down here during the race.
This may be the best battle shaping up in terms of significant position, at least for the moment. Junqueira fairly close to Carpentier as they move into the chicane that trip through. Difference between them about 0.4 of a second. Patrick Carpentier through the casino corner with Junqueira on his tail. But right now, it's a Cristiano D'Amata day in Montreal. We'll be back in a moment. We ride on board with 7th place Christian Fittipaldi. It's lap number 8 in Montreal. Cristiano D'Amata still leads it. Then Franchitti, Carpentier, Junqueira, and Vassar, the top 5. Paul Tracy remains in 6th, followed by Fittipaldi. Then Shinji Nakano, Takagi, and Kanan. Scott Dixon is next. Then Servia, Fernandez, Andretti, Jourdain, and then Tagliani in the 16th position. He's gotten back up one spot in the last couple of moments. And his pit telling everybody that asked down there, Jan Beekes, just got enthusiastic on his own, and now he's settled into the race.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know what, if you're going to take some risks, you want to do it early on. They say that driving on cold tires separates the men from the boys, and unfortunately today he was a boy.
Now, 2 laps ago, we saw Dario Franchitti draw D'Amata in just a little bit. Well, D'Amata perhaps got word from the pit that had happened, didn't want it to happen again, and turned his fastest lap of the race, 121.5. They'll go a little quicker than that as the fuel burns off through this run and subsequent runs. But, Cristiano, one of the capacities he has is to answer at any time just about any challenge that even seems to be developing behind him.
Well, part of the thing is it is psychological. What you try to do, Chris, is you try to just break the enthusiasm of the person behind you. You don't do it every single lap. You take one lap and you really lay down a good one. And then Dario Franchitti will see him pull away and see the kind of time he can do. And the idea is you're trying to demoralize your competition. Not every lap, but just every once in a while to tell them, you know what, I can do whatever I want.
9 laps are now concluded for the leaders, and the rest continue to funnel through. Everybody in the race, save Kenny Breck, on the lead lap in this event. It'll be a while before Cristiano D'Amata gets around to the tail of the field, although eventually he will with at least some of them, unless yellows keep packing them up before that can happen. But 2.7 miles around, there's a lot of clear track in front of him, and with that advantage, he can really control the race from the point because he has open road and will have for a long time.
Yeah, but for some reason, I have a feeling that Dario is not going to let him get away at that rate. I mean, obviously, he's pushing as hard as he can, but I don't think that D'Amata can do that every time. I think he tries to do it early in the race, and then he'll settle down to a pace. We'll see if Franchitti can match it.
And all of them in the top 7, 8, 9, everybody in the top 10 actually ran their fastest lap of the race on the 9th lap. That's not always the case, but it stands to a certain reason that you would be speeding up as the fuel wears down and you still haven't really expired the life of the tires. We're halfway through this run approximately.
Well, you have to figure out they burn 1.5 gallons of fuel every lap. And so a gallon of fuel weighs about 7 pounds. So that means every single lap you do, the car is 10 pounds lighter. So there's no question the car speeds up as you burn the fuel off.
And now under 1 minute 21 is D'Amata as he concludes lap number 10. And I mentioned halfway through this run, they must stop by lap 21. That's the increment for pit stops assigned by kart officials for this race. It will be a 3-stop race at its minimum. And the arithmetic in terms of when you could first go in and keep it a 3-stop race is a little different, but not like some tracks where you have about 15 laps to choose from. Here you only have a limited number.
Yeah, you can come in as early as lap 17 and as late as 21. So that's not a very big window. So basically this is how it works. If you're not happy with it, you pit on 17. If you're in the lead and you're happy with it, you wait to 21.
We'll wait and see how that plays out. And of course, between 17 and 21, if the yellow comes out, they're liable to all go just because it's available to them under the yellow. We're working on leader lap number 11, Cristiano D'Amata, who is the only one in the field who has gone under 1 minute 21 seconds on a lap. He did that last time around and drew away from Dario Franchitti quite a bit that trip around, actually, out to 2.378 last trip. Now he's about to conclude lap number 11 as the rest of the field works down the straightaway, and we watch the scoreboard now on the pit straight. And there it goes. He did a little bit of a slowdown, and Cristiano D'Amata has his lead out to 2.8 over Dario Franchitti. So much like he has many times this year, Cristiano D'Amata is kind of driving away from him, and the field just unable to maintain the pace that he is with a good car.
Oh, that was a half a second.
Yes.
I mean, wow. Is he ever making a liar out of me? I thought that Dario was going to be able to stick with him. I mean, if I was Dario and all of a sudden I saw the pit board and I lost a half a second in one lap, I'd be saying, man, I got no hope.
Well, especially if you're really working hard. Let's go downstairs, Todd Lewis.
Well, we'll give you a little bit more on Dario Franchitti, who's really not saying much, if anything, to his crew at the moment. Seems to be content, seems to be happy, just run his race, hope that things work out eventually for him, and that Cristiano D'Amata is there for the taking near the end of this one.
And stopped on course, Mario Dominguez. He is in turn number 2. We're going to get a full course yellow. And the pits, I'm told, are open. We'll wait and see what happens with the leaders. It's unlikely that they would opt to go to the pits here in this position, in this particular part of race leader is in the pits. Cristiano D'Amata on lap number 12 has gone to the pits as the yellow flies. That's
that surprises me.
Into the pit stall, he hits the marks and up in the air. Keep an eye out for adjustments. Most likely place would be the front wing. I don't see anything happening there.
I mean, this is not, the pit window is not open. I would love to hear what the strategy is and why they've decided to pit now.
And Cristiano D'Amata went to the pits. Franchitti, Carpentier, Junqueira, those folks stayed out there. So Cristiano is joining up
at the back of the pack.
Near the back of the pack. And there he is. That's Fagliani, who's gone into the pit. Now, you don't blame him. He was back anyway.
Absolutely.
That's the reason.
I expected everyone, let's say the last 5 or 6 cars to pit. That makes a whole lot of sense. But for the leader to come onto pit road, that is crazy.
So he opens a new pit window for himself, and Dario Franchitti will take over the lead as we operate under the second yellow of the day while they move in to pull away the car of Mario Dominguez. There are the standings, and it is a sunny day in Montreal. The standings a little bit off right there. Franchitti's our leader.
Welcome back to the Molson Indy Montreal. The best update that the crew will give me about Cristiano D'Amata's situation is, well, they had to come in the first 21 laps anyway, and this would have worked out for them in Vancouver had the drive shaft not broken. Christian Fittipaldi was also planning on coming in, but only if the top 3 did. Obviously, only his teammate came in. It's a confused situation at the moment, and they hope that with the yellows, it works out. To Don Martin.
And Oriol Servia has taken the wheel off, is about to climb out of the car. Apparently it's a broken axle. They brought him in, did the full pit stop, and then shut it down. They're checking on suspicion that it is a broken axle, and from the reaction from the crew and the driver, they're on harnessing the Hans device now. Oriol Servia is done for the day.
But what a curious thing to say, well, we had to stop in the first 21 laps anyway. Well, you know, now that puts you on a 4-stop strategy. Why on earth would you want to make 4 stops when anyone else makes 3? The only thing they are so focused. I mean, they have computer programs. They have just like a coach in the NFL. You've got, when do you go for 2 points? When do you go for 1? I mean, they have in plain, highlighted colors, when you're supposed to pit and when you're not. That is shocking.
Well, you come in on 11 and you have to stop every 21. You got to go in at 32. You got to come back at 53 and again at 74. That doesn't get you to 80 on 3 stops. So he's going to spend extra time in the pits. That is the bottom line. Where did he wind up? In 12th position after it all shook out. Dario Franchitti is on the point. We're concluding lap number 14, and we're going to get a green flag this time through, is our understanding, as you see them dicing back and forth, keeping the pressures and temperatures up on the systems. And Cristiano D'Amata well back in the pack. Now, he'll pick up some folks in relatively short order, but that's a lot of traffic to deal with. You don't have to. That's another part of the problem. You don't want to run in traffic if you don't have to.
Yeah, if he ends up having contact with somebody and gets knocked off the track, boy, will they look silly then.
And the green flag flies just as they exit the corner. Franchitti sees it first and picks up the throttle, and down into the corner we go. Take a look at what D'Amata does back on the pit straight. Meantime, through the first and second.
Whoa, what a
big
slip
wiggle
there.
And Patrick Carpentier is under challenge from Junqueira, who looked like he was trying to step down underneath him. And there you see Cristiano D'Amata at the back, near the back of the pack, as they climb the hill toward turns 3 and 4 in the twisty bits on the northern side of this course on the Ile de Notre Dame. Dario Franchitti, left-hander here, a burst of speed and down to 8 and 9. Let's go downstairs. Todd Lewis.
Kenny Breck, even with a good starting spot in 5th, you just can't seem to catch a break. Another early end for you.
Yeah, it seems like that. It's when I screw up, I pay for it, and when Tracy screw up, someone else pays for it, not him.
So this was the even up this weekend?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. All I know is people say Tracy hit Tagliani and he went sideways and knocked me out, so I don't know.
You don't know? You didn't see if it was Paul Tracy who did the actual punting?
I'm pretty sure it was, because that's what I've been told, but I haven't seen it yet, no.
Thanks, Kenny. Better luck next week in Denver.
Working on the 15th lap of the event, Dario Franchitti on the point.
Now, we rode with Paul Tracy, right? I mean, we saw Tagliani step out, and I thought from on board, we couldn't see the contact. Didn't look like he punted him.
No, there wasn't any lurch of his car or anything that would tell us there was a bump.
Well, there certainly was an accordion effect, and there's no question that Tagliani got squashed in the sandwich, and Paul Tracy was part of that. But, well, that's what happens on the first turn when you have a chain reaction.
15 laps are done. 0.8 of a second between Franchitti and Carpentier that trip around. Franchitti got a good solid start. Even though he had a wiggle in the first corner, he recovered and drove away a little bit. Carpentier spent the first half of the lap under pretty serious assault from Junqueira in third, but held on to the spot. And then Vassar and Paul Tracy rounding out the top 5, and they're still in that relative order at the moment, followed in 6th spot by Christian Fittipaldi. And Nakano, who we mentioned earlier, had a couple of reasonable finishes in F1 here a while back in the 90s, is running well inside the top 10. He's had his moments this weekend in terms of speed in qualifying and in the practice sessions.
But the big news, I think, as you look through the field, and you'll see it right there in the background, is that D'Amata has passed no one. D'Amata is still behind Michel Jourdain. That goes to show you how important track position is. In my view, just crazy that you would give that up.
He ran a 1-minute 25-second lap that first time around after going back to the green. The guys at the front, Franchitti in particular, ran 123s and 124s. So he's losing, more contact with the front by being bottled up back there. You know the car's capable of better, but even though he's heavy on fuel now, but still he is not able to keep up with the pace being set at the front. We'll watch this time as it goes through. Franchitti, 1-minute 21 that trip, so they're pretty well back up to speed at the point. And Cristiano D'Amata, 123, so he lost 2 seconds to the lead on that lap.
Well, it's good for the championship. I mean, you don't wish anyone any ill will, but it's nice when you have guys that are still going to be in the shot for the championship.
Paul Tracy continuing to work in 5th position. He's got a couple of car lengths to get before he would come to terms with Jimmy Vassar and perhaps try him. One of the breaking points where he might consider it coming up here as they move down toward the hairpin. There's 3rd place. There's Vassar, and into the first corner they go. As they funnel through, see the separation from Franchitti, who's off the corner. There comes Patrick Carpentier. Vassar and Paul there through there. Everybody maintaining about the same space and no real battle shaping up. kind of a single file line through there. Nobody taking any chances, and we're running down for most of these people toward that first pit window, which will open here in a few hundred yards. They're just concluding lap 17. Within the next 4 laps, they have to all make a decision. They can go as far as lap 21 before they have to come in to the pits. We're at the Molson Indy Montreal 2002. It's the inaugural race here on the Ile de Notre Dame. Let's do some research on the first lap incident. Jan Beekes, we're on board with Paul Tracy.
The first time I didn't see any contact, but during the break we had a chance to look at it, and sure enough, Kenny Breck is right on the money. Paul Tracy did give a slight tap to the back of Tagliani. That wasn't Tagliani's fault. Good call for Kenny Breck. And so that was a case of the sandwich with a little extra meat there from Paul Tracy.
Meantime, 19 laps are concluded. 2 laps to go to the maximum pit window of 21. Franchitti leads Patrick Carpentier by 2.3 and 4 seconds back to Junqueira, 5.7 back to Vassar, 6.5 back to Paul Tracy. All of them have to come in for a pit stop in the next couple of laps, as does Fittipaldi, Nakano, and Dixon. Adrian Fernandez is in a little different position because he's been in the pit since the start of the race, and he probably is going to assume the lead of this event before too very long.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is that Adrian Fernandez is going to get to lead for 1 lap, then Michel Jourdain will get to lead for a lap, and then everything will start getting back into sequence. And that's what happens if you can't get the car stopped. Just go ahead and don't pound over the curbs. Take the shortcut. Now, there's no penalty there as long as he doesn't improve his lap time, and he certainly didn't gain time there. He lost it.
So Alex Tagliani gets offline for the second time in the event. Earlier on, it was a bold move at the hairpin against Jimmy Vassar, and he went straight through the corner, gathered the car up, and was able to continue, albeit at the end of the pack. And this time, he just missed the corner, went through the runoff area. Now he's slowing down.
Yeah, he's you know what, he's definitely got a problem.
Yep. More than just missing the corner, perhaps. We'll keep a close eye on Alex Tagliani as he gets the throttle to pick up once again and head back down the straightaway. This is coming toward the pits. Will he stay to driver's left and come in the pits? We're about to know. And now he's going to go through the corner and stay on the straightaway, so he's going to continue out there as he passes the start-finish line. He is running in the 15th spot, and that took him a minute and a half to get around that time.
Okay, now all the tires are getting set out on pit road. We're going to see a flurry of pit stops as we approach lap 21. And there could, you know, if you can save a little bit of time here, there's a potential for picking up a position or two. And boy, these guys, I mean, they've been practicing all morning. I was down in the morning warm-up, and the crews practice over and over and over. Trying to shave just a 1/10 of a second on a pit stop can make the difference.
When they get there, it will be the end of lap number 21, taking this run out to its maximum for the top 8 in the field. All of them have to come in here in the next few seconds. Dario Franchitti will lead the way as he decelerates. He's now on pit road down to 50 miles an hour. The standard speed limit for a kart event through this season, and they all approach. There's Patrick Carpentier and Bruno Junqueira as they find their pit stalls and tuck in. Franchitti's already getting service. Just one pit stall up. That's Patrick Carpentier. Junqueira's gone by.
Now you'll see Vassar at the back. He'll be done first.
Don Martin has one.
Paul Tracy's in for the quick stop. They top up the fuel and he's gone. Pit stop in the 10-second range means they got probably a whole load of fuel for him. Chris?
Paul Tracy getting out ahead of Jimmy Vassar there as they left the pits. Fernandez, meantime, who did stay on the course, is the race leader, followed by Michael Andretti, Jourdain, D'Amata, and Takagi, the top 5. Then Tony Kanaan. Dario Franchitti came out in 7th position. Carpentier behind him, then Junqueira as it's listed at the moment, then Tracy, then Vassar, and down the list, Nakano and Dixon, Fittipaldi, and Tagliani to round out all of those still running in the event. And the top 5 in this event, or top 6 actually, are out of pit sequence with Dario Franchitti in this group that just did now pit.
Now you're talking about Adrian Fernandez, and we talked at the opening of the show about the pain that he's in. He said what's really hurting him on this racetrack is that you have to pound the curbs. The only way to go fast is you have to bound over the top of the curbs in the chicanes. He says every single time I do it, I'm just ouch, ouch, ah, and it just kills him, he says.
Todd Lewis standing by.
Patrick Carpentier's pit, the Quebec connection trying to come through here. Of course, Patrick Carpentier and his race engineer, Michael Cannon, who happens to be from Montreal. Good, smooth first stop. No changes. Patrick very happy, and this race does seem to be coming to him. At least in the early going, this crew is very quiet so far.
So two jump out of line, and Jourdain moves to the front as Adrian Fernandez and Michael Andretti, as you expected, Jan, do go into the pit. So Jourdain is leading it. Cristiano Damata is now in the second position in the race. Now, when he gets to the front, he's going to have about a half a load of fuel left and some laps to work with and a fairly clear track in front of him. Do you suppose the object of the exercise is an attempt to run off and get more than a pit stop ahead of everybody and save that fourth pit stop that they've now dealt themselves in their hand for this afternoon?
Well, they'll try, but I don't think there's enough time for that because you have to gain 25 seconds plus the length of the pit stop. So at a 10-second pit stop, you would have to pull out a 35-second gap to be able to pit in the lead and come back out. He doesn't have enough time for that.
I wanted to hear the arithmetic. It was a somewhat rhetorical question, but I thought we had to at least cover that ground in anticipation of what might be attempted here in the next few moments. Meantime, Jourdain continues to lead the pack around. Carpentier and Franchitti have moved up a couple of spots, as has everyone else, with Adrian Fernandez and Michael Andretti having made those pit stops. So the shuffle is still underway, and it will remain unabated pretty much through the rest of the race because so many are out of sequence. Here comes Michel Jourdain. So he gives up the front spot, and the race leader once again is Cristiano Damata on lap number 23 of the 80 scheduled for this event. Let's go on an Andretti update with Don Martin.
They were a little concerned, Michael was, his handling of the car under heavy braking. You know, Michael is an especially heavy braker. They adjusted the wing, tried to help him out a little bit to improve the handling, Chris.
Okay, Michael continues to work with the car. He had a diabolical first couple of turns around the course when he had what appeared to be a display problem on the wheel and then the flat tire. But now he's fought his way into some semblance of race trim and is starting to fight for some points in this event here in Montreal. Cristiano Damata has gone back to the front, followed by Takagi, Kanaan, Franchitti, and Carpentier. Some of them still have to pit.
Welcome back to the Molson Indy Montreal at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Alex Tagliani, who had such high hopes along with his player's teammate Patrick Carpentier, continues to have his difficulties. Talked with team manager Neil Mickelwright just a second ago. In addition to gearbox problems that Alex Tagliani is experiencing, the team also can't communicate with him now via the radio. They're having difficulties. They're going to the old-fashioned sign method. This is not a good day so far for Alex Tagliani.
Alex Tagliani currently running in 15th spot, the last spot among those that are still active in the event, trying to chase down Michael Andretti if indeed he can. Last trip around for the leader, Cristiano Damata, was 1:20.9 seconds. He's 2.2 ahead of Takagi, 8.8 against Dario Franchitti, who would be his most serious contender. Behind him in fourth position at the moment, although they are on different pit strategies now. Patrick Carpentier listed in 5th position in the event.
Now, if you watch the interval on the upper left and you watch the time that we had on the previous graphic, you would see that you'd have to go all the way down to Tagliani. In other words, if Damata were to pit now, he would drop all the way to the back. So he has to make up a ton of ground if they think they don't want to lose track position after his next stop.
He's just put another lap down at 1:20.8 as he comes up on his second pit stop. That's not too far away. We're working leader lap number 26, the 26th lap of the race for everybody that is still active in the event. And he's going to have to stop, I believe it's on 33, when he has to come back in, and that will shuffle some other folks to the front. Takagi and Kanaan will have to come in at the same time. Franchitti and Carpentier will go back to P1 and P2 at that point.
Well, it does make it interesting. I mean, you've got the fastest guy on the racetrack off of the strategy, a strategy that we're still scratching our head why they're using. But, you know, at least it is going to be interesting because he'll take the lead, he'll give it up, he'll take the lead, he'll give it up. And the only thing that might change it is an opportune full course caution at a perfect time. But even that's not going to save him.
Tor Takagi running in the second position. Another of those in the field that have had experience on this track. He ran F1 here, as did Nakano and Michael Andretti and Christian Fittipaldi. Takagi had a points finish in this event, but then was relieved of that points finish some years back as a result of a rules violation. But he had some success on this course. And that last, as you mentioned, to us a couple of times as we discussed this issue over the weekend. Having been here before gives you an advantage that lasts about an hour on Friday, and then everybody's caught up to you anyway.
No, that's true. But you know what? He has known as a guy who is good on the brakes. So this is a good track for him.
Patrick Carpentier slow on the course.
At first I thought it was
Into the
Tagliani
pits.
because we know Tagliani had gearbox trouble, but this is bad news for the hometown favorite.
He's nearly drifted to a stop as Carpentier comes into the pits trying to get to his pit stall. A quick look at the car. We don't see anything in terms of external damage, a flat tire or wing damage or any indication of contact anywhere. We have no report of any such thing either as he gets toward the pit stall. His crew running out to meet him. Just no power. That's the preliminary report. That was fairly evident. We'll have to wait and see if we can define that a little further. So Patrick Carpentier drops out of line. That moves Junqueira up to fifth. Everybody else filters forward. And all of a sudden, it is a diabolical day for the team players.
They're bringing the starter. Certainly he couldn't have just killed it. They're going to fire it up and listen to it and see if oh, you know what, the first thing that came off was the steering wheel. They fired it up and said, nope, that baby is hurt.
That's it. So Patrick Carpentier, with such a promising day going, has retired, waiting for a chance to get back into the second position in this race. Well qualified, a good warm-up, a big fan base. Everything was unfolding just beautifully, and suddenly, boom, it is gone in a minute. Cristiano D'Amata still on course, approaching the second pit stop. That'll be in a few moments. Paul Tracy up to sixth position now. He's being chased hard by Jimmy Vasser. There was a brief exchange of an accusation-explanation, I think, down there, because Tracy and Vasser came out of the pits very close to each other. Did he cut him off? Didn't he cut him off? Well, card officials said no, everything was clean. Go move on, gentlemen, and drive your race cars. Patrick Carpentier, dejected to be sure, moving away from his disabled race car out of the event in Montreal. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Welcome back to Montreal. A disappointing day for Patrick Carpentier. He is out far too early in this race. Better news here in the pits of Tony Kanaan, who's improved some 10 spots, qualified 13th, now running third. He had an understeer problem all weekend. They didn't fix it until final warm-up laps this morning. They inserted new springs. That understeer problem not a factor as Tony Kanaan currently running third.
Yeah, well, Don, you know, the only problem is the reason he's running third is he's on the same strategy as Cristiano D'Amata and Tora Takagi as far as when they pitted. So, unfortunately, in 3 laps, he'll be giving up all those positions.
D'Amata, Takagi, and Kanaan are on that schedule, and when that occurs in a few moments' time, Dario Franchitti, we expect, will shuffle to the front. He has a 9-second edge over Bruno Junqueira, and those two in 4th and 5th at the moment are on the same strategy, as is 6th place Paul Tracy, 7th place Jimmy Vasser, Nakano in 8th, and Scott Dixon in 9th. Michel Jourdain has a little further to go, running in 10th before he has to come back into the pits. So the top 3 in this race at the moment are going to have to step aside and get service in the pits by rule in 2 laps from now. The last lap for the leader, Cristiano D'Amata, is 1:20. Kanaan just ran a 1:21. And the face tells the entire story for Patrick Carpentier. What could have been in the sunshine of Montreal.
You know, I've been in that position before. I mean, not like this, but at a home racetrack where there's so much expectation. And you know what you feel? You feel as though you've let him down. I mean, I had the same situation. My car broke. It's nothing he did. But you're just sitting there, you see all the fans in the stands, you know, they came here to see you, and you're like, man, I let all these people down. Of course you didn't, but that's what it feels like.
Difficult moment, no question about it. So now we just wait for the pit stops here and see what unfolds in terms of the pit strategy over the next few moments. Cristiano D'Amata right now is, I would say, probably he's going to drop. He might stay in the top 10 through the course of this pit stop if everything goes just right with his team, which normally it does. But he's got 39 seconds back to the 10th place Michel Jourdain in the order, so that may be where he comes out when he finishes his pit service in a moment.
Which obviously he'll be, you know, if he does that every time, picks up a few here and there, you know, he'll be back in contention. But It would have been nice if he would have stayed out front, but actually it's good. It's better this way because now we get to see him try and work his way through and pick off a few on each one of these pit sequences.
One lap to go, and he's going to have to do it, and the tires are coming over the wall for those 3 teams that are required to make a stop here in just a couple of moments. Incidentally, Alex Tagliani also is going to have to pit here in a couple of minutes. He's way back in 14th position, now listed a slot ahead of Patrick Carpentier. 4 retirements in the event: Carpentier, Servia, Mario Dominguez, and Kenny Breck. And Tagliani has chosen this moment to make that pit stop a couple of laps before he absolutely had to, but they've called him in. They thought they might have a gearbox problem. He's been offline a couple of times and off the racing circuit down at the hairpin. And here comes the race leader, Cristiano D'Amata, 6-time winner this year, down to 50 miles an hour and approaching his pit stall, as well as Tagliani up near D'Amata's pit is still getting his service. He's down and away. A bit long pit stop there, it seemed. And Cristiano D'Amata, lower right on your screen, he's getting the service. Here comes Tony Kanaan in 3rd place. Dario Franchitti's already cleared the front straightaway and is officially the race leader at the conclusion of lap number 33. And D'Amata is away and now picking up the throttle as he clears the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, and he's going to jump right in there. And Patrick Carpentier stands by in the pits with Todd Lewis.
Patrick, you were having a wonderful day, and then it all ended so quickly. Was it the motor?
Yeah, it's very tough. You know, it was fun to run up there and in front of the crowds, and I thought we were going to have a good race, but it started to lose a bit of speed, and I was struggling to follow Dario, and at the end it just gave up. But it's racing, and I guess it happens, but I just want to say thanks to the team and Spud Carsworth. They did a fantastic job this weekend, and sometimes it happens, but it's sad it happened here. But thanks to people who came too.
It's racing and it happens, as you mentioned, but here in Montreal, in front of your hometown crowd, first time out, it would have been a special feeling, and we really saw the emotion of Patrick Carpentier.
Yeah, it would have been fantastic. It seems like we're going to finish in the top 3, and to get a podium here would have been great, but maybe other time.
Thank you, Patrick.
Dario Franchitti has gone to the point we've got a battle down in the corner.
Yeah. Ride him, cowboy. That was Dixon.
Dixon against Takagi. Dixon trying to overtake, and he overcooked it into the corner. Takagi held on to the corner, and now they get it pointed in the right direction, and off they go down the straightaway. Franchitti leads. We're in Montreal. Welcome back to Montreal. A look there at Paul Tracy, currently running in the 4th position. 20 seconds off the pace being set by Dario Franchitti, and a few seconds behind Cristiano D'Amata, who got brilliant service and tactical decision-making from his team just a few moments ago under the green when they pitted, and got back out just behind Bruno Junqueira and 15 seconds off the lead. Now, how do you pull that one off? Because we didn't expect them to be able to do that.
What happened is this whole group were looking. We thought that he was going to slot back in this zone. But what happened is the crew did not make a 10-second pit stop. Of course, that makes a whole lot of sense. If you're going to make 4 stops, you don't need as much fuel. So what they did was they took on less fuel. He had a much quicker pit stop, and amazingly, he pops out in 3rd. Now, he is 16 seconds off of the lead, but I mean, that is much higher than both you and I expected. And of course, they're making their strategy looking like it's going to pay now.
Well, it may pay off indeed, as he's running in the 3rd position out of sequence. He still is committed to a 4-stop race, but if he gets a break or 2 from here to the end, he will be certainly in the fight for the lead right at the critical moment, the last few laps. But he will have to stop 4 times, and the rest of those in the top 7 at least will only have to stop 3 in the event. They've each stopped once so far.
Now, I will tell you that I spoke with a couple of engineers about how much time would they lose on pit road, and they did tell me an average was about 25 seconds. But the one thing they didn't know, as Paul Tracy gets a bit sideways in the hairpin, is that when you leave the pits, you get to take a shortcut. You can get to turn 2 faster when you leave the pits than if you're on the racetrack. It appears as though at speed, you actually make up more distance than we thought. Todd?
Jan Geekas, I can confirm you're exactly right. It was a quicker pit stop for Cristiano D'Amata. They only put 25 gallons of fuel in the last time by. Of course, the tank holds 35. Quicker pit stop gets them out in a better position.
They're able to pick up the throttle just as they clear the pits down there. And the acceleration of these machines with a shorter line into turn number 1, you're saving some pavement to get there. So they picked up, I don't know, we don't know how much they pick up. This is the first time they've been here, but maybe a second or two.
Well, it has to be more than that, because our calculation, again, was if he made a 10-second pit stop, he would have been back in 10th. Well, he made a 6-second pit stop, and he ended up in 3rd. So therefore, he must have picked up another 2 seconds, you would think, by taking the shortcut. So that was more than the engineers were banking on.
Dario Franchitti on the point. 10 seconds now in front of Junqueira. 16.2 ahead of D'Amata. 22.7 ahead of Tracy. 23.4 ahead of Jimmy Vasser. 5 laps from now, 4 of the top 5 will be facing their second pit stop. That will be Franchitti, Junqueira, Tracy, and Vasser, and that will shuffle D'Amata back to the front, but out of sequence. So an interesting tactical battle unfolding, and Cristiano D'Amata may be getting the better of it, perhaps because his team read that pit out situation better than anybody else on the grounds.
But, you know, we've been trying to figure out why they would want to pit more times than anyone else and do so deliberately. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe they figured, you know what, we don't lose very much time on pit road because of the shortcut. We don't mind making 4 stops if everyone else makes 3.
See the standings. Nakano in the 6th spot. Takagi just behind him. Then Dixon running top 10. Tony Kanaan, who is on the identical strategy as D'Amata, is in the 9th spot. Then Michel Jourdain, Christian Fittipaldi, and Michael Andretti has now made his way into the points in 12th spot, followed by Fernandez in pain but still active, and Tagliani in the 14th position in the race of the 14 that are running. He is now better than a lap off the pace of this race, the first lap traffic in the contest. 39 of 80 laps are concluded. They're working leader lap number 40 coming up, and that will be half distance, and it'll be as a practical matter an official race, though the weather isn't threatening to make it anything less than 80. Man, what a glorious weekend it has been. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here in the Ile de Notre Dame. Big crowds, great enthusiasm. A lot of folks here are certainly disappointed with what's turned out with the players' situation. Tagliani with trouble and Patrick out of the race now, but still they have Canadian interest in the top 5 in Paul Tracy, and he may well pull it off before it's done, before the day is all said and done too.
These overhead shots just give you such a great idea of the acceleration and the deceleration when you hit the brakes, in that you have sort of the accordion effect, is that as the time stays the same, let's say you're 1 second behind someone, at 190 miles an hour, 1 second is a large distance. You go down to 37 miles an hour, and it's a short distance. It's great to look overhead and see that accordion effect.
Good look at Dario Franchitti, who yesterday, after he qualified on the front row, I thought was still a somewhat disappointed player, only because well, what he said was, I was able to cobble together a fast lap, but he didn't seem all that pleased with the prospect for the race, as though he could get 80 good laps out of the car or something. He just didn't seem as though he felt right. But so far today, not so bad.
No, no, his attitude has improved markedly now that he has a 10.5 second lead. You also saw some smoke in the hairpin, and that is the indication that he locked a brake, that he's pushing hard. You know, they're on the radios, they know what's going on, they're watching D'Amata, and they're going, you know what, he's not as far back as we thought, you got to push hard.
D'Amata now 17 seconds back. Dario Franchitti just turned a brilliant lap, 120.375, his fastest and in the event, and it pulled him away from everybody behind it in spite of the smoke down in the hairpin. He is pushing hard, as you suggest, Jan Beekes, and drawing away just a little bit. Tracy now 25 seconds behind. Vasser is 26 seconds behind, and that top 5 order remains static for the moment, but 2 laps from now it's going to move around just a little bit.
Yeah, we're getting a good look at Bruno Junqueira. Certainly, I would say one of the more dynamic guys out here emotionally, and a good interval back to Cristiano D'Amata, who, of course, you know, that's kind of what you don't want. You don't want a carrot in front of Cristiano D'Amata that he can chase down, because that's one of the things drivers really like. If you can just see a car ahead of you and it gives you something to chase down, that's sometimes when you do your best laps of all.
And those are two fellows that are fairly used to working against each other on a racetrack. Since their youth, they have done so, as D'Amata moves through the hairpin and onto the straightaway. And this summer in kart, they've raced side by side. The fellows from Brazil, from the same hometown, fathers that raced against each other. They raced against each other and traveled to races as friends in their youth, and now they're reunited, much to their surprise. And I think it's genuine surprise that they both landed in approximately the same spot. Pretty unusual.
It is.
Junqueira did a speed up that trip around and gained some ground back in second place. He picked up a couple of tenths against Dario Franchitti, no more. D'Amata down to 18.4 seconds behind the point where he doesn't need to be in any hurry. He knows what's going to happen here. The next lap around is the cruise for Franchitti and Junqueira and Tracy and Vassar and Nakano lay out their tires. Also due in is Scott Dixon and Christian Fittipaldi. It won't be a jam-packed pit road, but it'll be busy enough.
So we'll be back to D'Amata, Takagi, and Kanaan, the same three that we had in the lead on the previous one. And again, the only thing that will throw this thing for a loop is if he had a full course caution in between when one group pits versus another.
So far, it's been pretty clean. We had a couple of full course cautions earlier on for relatively minor incidents. The Kenny Breck deal in the beginning. Here comes Dario Franchitti on schedule into the pits. Junqueira should follow him in about 10 seconds time as he puts on the brakes and gets it down to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. He is hit in as Dario Franchitti hits his marks. Up it goes. Here comes Junqueira, and he's approaching his pit stall. Service to the Team Green machine is underway. Todd Lewis, you there?
In Bruno Junqueira's pit, actually waiting for the second place runner to come in. Hits the marks right on. Crew goes towards. So far, pretty routine service. Fuel going in. A little bit of difficulty with the left front tire. They do get it on now. Dull tire's done. Waiting on fuel. And Bruno Junqueira is on his way.
So he storms away. Meantime, Dario Franchitti trips the lights and left. Officially in second place in that particular instance.
Paul Tracy launching out of his pit box as well.
So Cristiano D'Amata moves to the front. Takagi moves up. So is Kanaan Jourdain and Michael Andretti into the top 7. We'll wait to see how it sorts itself out. There's a good look at what we're talking about. Pit exit is straight here, and turn 1 and 2 takes the cars on the track way to the right and then back to the left. It's a lot more pavement to cover at about the same speed because the cars coming off the pit straight are on the brakes.
And I just did some arithmetic here. I used my stopwatch to see how long Dario was on pit road as opposed to the guys that stayed out on the racetrack, and the engineers were right. It's about 25 seconds that you lose. So that just goes, I mean, D'Amata, those couple laps that he did prior and after to his pit stop to get him into that position, that was pretty amazing.
Meantime, on the racetrack, we have Vassar and Paul Tracy hammer and tong after they left the pits. This is for position as Tracy takes a look to the left. It's a lot bumpier over there going into the hairpin, and he tucks in behind the back wing of Vassar. So they swap positions here just a moment ago, and Tracy obviously would like to have it back.
Well, that's the pit stop. Remember last time we were saying, did Jimmy Vassar cut him off? And you know what, we're actually, did Paul Tracy cut him off? And now this is going to be a bonsai move that we talked about. Can he go side by side into the chicane?
He moves him over to the left side. Now the straight line through the chicane, and Paul got the slipstream, jumped out as you suggested in the piece at the beginning, and then finished it under braking. If it was just under braking, maybe not. But with the slipstream braking combination, he did it. Let's go downstairs.
Michael Andretti's pit stop, he was delayed slightly as they loaded up with fuel. He would take on the full load, and Michael's back in the race.
Take a look down at the hairpin. What happened? Paul Tracy couldn't do it to the outside there, but he did it here.
Like you said, he was in position to polish it off. And what he did is, instead of Jimmy Vassar pushing Paul Tracy offline, Paul Tracy pushed Jimmy Vassar offline. And as they say, the rest is history.
And so he gets the space back. Paul Tracy runs in 7th. To reset it at the top, Cristiano D'Amata is the leader on leader lap 44. Then Franchitti, Takagi 3rd, then Kanaan, then Bruno Junqueira. Very interesting race in Montreal. Don't go away. Back at the Molson Indy, Montreal, it is Cristiano D'Amata on the point, followed by Franchitti. Toru Takagi in 3rd, then Kanaan and Junqueira, the top 5. As they continue to circulate, there's a look at Tony Kanaan in the 4th position, and it's a good deal back to Bruno Junqueira. Quick note, we do have technical difficulties that have jumped up at us here on the island, and nobody is getting onboard camera service. We can't go on board with any of the runners right now. They're working on it. We hope to get back onto the track with the driver sorted, but right now we simply cannot do so. Tracy is up to 6th, and then Jimmy Vasser. That was a nice little battle a little while ago. And there's Bruno Junqueira looking for his 2nd victory of the year as he moves through off the pit road and down into turn 1 and 2. This is the area where they're making up enormous time coming out of pit stops, apparently, on Beekes. You were running a watch on that. Did you get anything definitive?
Well, I'm going to. What I thought I would do is when we get back to this group, once I could get somebody with a high shot there, I've got the watch on Jimmy Vasser to see, and then you would rejoin right about on that line. So that's 7 seconds. Next time we get a high shot of someone leaving the pits, we can time that. But it appears as though they're picking up much more time on that little shortcut than we first thought.
Well, everybody knew there would be some pickup in that area. You just have to look at the pavement to know that. But I guess no one really knew exactly what the difference would be when a car leaps to 100, 120, 130 miles an hour leaving the pits. Once you're out of the 50-mile-an-hour speed zone, you can drop the hammer and really pick up some ground. Cristiano D'Amata demonstrated that very nicely earlier on. So did Dario Franchitti, because he had benefit of the same thinking when he did his 2nd pit stop a while ago. We thought he'd come out in 4th or 5th. He came out in 2nd using the same theory, the same arithmetic.
Well, unfortunately, which means for D'Amata that the 4-stop strategy is still probably not the ideal strategy. But you know what? If you've got the fastest car here, maybe you can make 4 stops and be a factor. Boy, wouldn't that be something if he could figure out how to win and make 1 additional pit stop. But I think right now, certainly Franchitti's in the driver's seat.
He's 12 seconds behind D'Amata on the advantageous, or at least it appears to be the advantageous pit strategy dictated by the rules, the minimum of 3. 16 seconds off the lead, and 4 behind Franchitti is Takagi. 21 off the lead is Tony Kanaan, and then Junqueira. Very, very smooth. Can't tell as much from outside as you can from on board, but we've seen so many times this year when Cristiano D'Amata is negotiating even bumpy race courses or bumpy sections. The wheel is so steady in his hand. It's a comfortable ride. It's a relatively easy ride, and that really saves the driver. It certainly saves equipment and lets you be at your best in the late going of a race when it's difficult to do so sometimes.
Yeah, I think relative, that's the term you have to put in there when you say relatively easy. I mean, by race car standards, it's not an easy ride. But boy, when your car is working right, it is definitely an enjoyable ride. But believe me, they are still working very, very hard.
D'Amata running laps continually in the 120s. Franchitti just did. Let's see what Takagi does that time, 128. Now, Takagi and Franchitti are running as fast as D'Amata right now. And in the case of Franchitti, his car is a fair bit heavier. So that's a good bit of work for him.
Absolutely. We talked about 10 pounds a lap. It's an interesting figure, that 1.5 gallons of fuel that you burn. You think about that, that's a lot of fuel in a lap, and that's because they burn methanol, and you generally burn about twice as much methanol as you would than if you're running on racing gasoline.
Toru Takagi in 3rd, and Tony Kanaan. Let's look at his times. Now, he's over a minute 20, so he and Junqueira, who's behind him, they're losing contact with the front 3 in a relative sense. They're losing pavement to them each trip around, or the last couple anyway. We are on the 49th lap of 80 in the event. Michael Andretti has advanced another spot in the last few moments up to 11th, so he stands to score a couple of points here. Nakano's been shuffled back into 12th. Fernandez is 13th and out of the points, and Tagliani continues to run 14th and now is well over a lap. In fact, a couple of laps off the pace.
Now, you know that D'Amata may not wait. He has to pit in 5 laps, but there's nothing to say that he might not come in earlier than that because he doesn't want to be left. Let's see, you said 74 would have been what he was on schedule for. Well, that would mean there's only 6 laps. Yeah, that leaves 6 laps to the end. So, look for D'Amata possibly to come in earlier than 5 laps from now when he would have to.
They can kind of pick their spot and make sure they've got a clear pit road and come in and get the optimum advantage of that, getting in clean, getting out clean as he works down toward the hairpin, and we'll wonder aloud with everyone whether or not he's going to make a stop sooner than is required.
You know why he would is because now he sees Adrian Fernandez. I would much rather pit than I would try and pass somebody. So as soon as you catch another car, you say, hey, duck on the pit road. Don't even bother with it.
So we'll see if he makes such a decision. Right now, his team does not have anything laid out, so they're not ready for him. Should he move to the left from this point forward, it might be a surprise to his folks at the other end. Not closing down too much on Adrian. Let's see if he takes the corner. He does. So he'll moved behind Adrian Fernandez down the pit straight. He's running laps 2 seconds quicker than Fernandez on a regular basis.
Now you can see all the pit boards down pit lane. We've heard about some guys losing their radio, but you know what? You always use pit boards anyway, because you don't always want to rely on the radio. Some guys prefer the boards, and that's why you see him as Tora Takagi. Of course, he's on the same sequence as D'Amata.
And he's in for his pit stop, and Don Martin's there.
Tora Takagi up, and all 4 tires coming off. Of course, that make it count as a qualification. Just over 7 seconds, so just a splash of fuel, and he's on his way. Just enough time to change tires, Chris.
Yep, they filled it to the tires.
Exactly, yes. 7 seconds is not a full load of fuel, but of course, because he's on the same sequence as D'Amata, you don't need to fill up the car. And, you know, that's, oh, I was supposed to time that. Okay, when we're going to get a chance with D'Amata when he leaves, because we already have written down what the time is on the track. We'll subtract it from what that shortcut is, and then we'll finally get that answer that we've been looking for all day.
And in the twisty bits, D'Amata has come up to Adrian Fernandez, and probably being held up just a little bit, but he's on the straightaway now, and his team has the equipment out. I think he's about to head to the pits. We'll know in a minute when we look out our window. There he goes, hard on the brakes as he crosses the line down to 50. Todd Lewis, he's on pit road and headed your way. A couple of 100 yards, and they'll give him the service necessary and see what they can do with maintaining position or improving it.
He has hit the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, and he hits the marks right on in front of his Newman Haas pit. Fuel is going in. They're being very deliberate with the tires so far. Tires done, routine service. They are waiting on fuel. Cristiano D'Amata, no adjustments. He's good to go.
Yeah, but 9.4 seconds, they won't like that. We'll start to watch right at the pavement change, because that's where we did it on the cars on the racetrack. And boy, yes, that is certainly faster. About 5 seconds. So that was the 5 seconds, the missing 5 seconds we were looking for that you pick up, at least on the pit exit.
And back into the pits with a speed violation and a drive-through that he has to pay is Tora Takagi. He went 52 on the way out a moment ago on his pit stop. Now he's paying the penalty for it. He'll probably drop the hammer here at this line in anger as he leaves. A good top 5 finish, and possibly underway for Takagi here, and that may have gone awry with that little bit of a mistake with the throttle on the way out for Tora Takagi. 52 miles an hour, we're told, in the 50-mile speed limit. Meantime, Franchitti at the point, 12 laps away from his next scheduled pit stop, is in first place. D'Amata listed second, then Tony Kanaan, who's 3 laps away from the pit stop, then Junqueira and Paul Tracy in 5th.
When you think about the speed limit, you say, how can that happen? It's supposed to be electronic. Well, the idea is that you program them. The ideal number you'd want your car is 50.5, because you only get a penalty if the radar gun trips over to 51. But unfortunately, if it hits 52, that wasn't software. Something went amiss there, and the pit speed limiter, that's a fairly, it sounds like only a mile an hour, but you know what, in the electronic world, that's a big error.
Tony Kanaan is now listed in second, and he has done 52 laps and has to stop in a couple of laps. He stayed out and got off the same sequence that he was on with Cristiano D'Amata. D'Amata in third place, then Junqueira, Tracy, and Vassar, the top 6. Takagi back to the 7th spot, and we'll wait for it all to play out in the Tagliani car, who was just in front of Dario Franchitti a moment ago, has moved aside, and now he's on the course again and continuing on. Alex Tagliani's had a difficult day, but he's still running, and that can't be said for his teammate, Patrick Carpentier.
He's having a very tough day, though. There was an observer report saying he got off the course and back on again and again. So not only does he have gearbox problems, he may also have braking-related problems, but at least he is soldiering on. And my, oh my, what a tough day for the players' team.
Tony Kanaan slid through at the hairpin there, and Kanaan may be coming to the pits this time through. It looks as though his team has everything laid out. In fact, he stays driver's left as he approaches, and here he comes. There's the line, and Don Martin, he's just about to. You can see him now.
Sliding in, Chris. We'll put the watch on it unofficially. Tires come off, fuel going in. He's approaching 7 seconds now, and they're taking on just a few seconds of additional fuel in Tony's tank.
Yeah, 8.2 seconds is better than D'Amata, but you know what? When you're not filling it up, in practice, these guys can do it in about 6.3, 6.6 seconds, but it's tougher when you're having to do it for real.
Kanaan coming off a nice finish at Road America last week, one of the bright spots in a somewhat dismal season. Someone connected with the team not so many events ago say he has every right to be bitter about this year, but he has not been. We're in Montreal. We'll be back. Terrific dice a moment ago for position, John.
Jimmy Vasser forcing his way to the inside in the hairpin, but of course Tony Kanaan says, I'm not going to have any of that. He's got a great opportunity to make that slipstream move that we talked about. Jimmy Vasser weaving back and forth saying, no way, baby, but here comes Tony Kanaan.
Kanaan making the move through the slipstream and then down inside. Same thing Paul Tracy did to Vasser in that exact piece of pavement a little while ago. Now Vasser shortcuts the corner, but he was in the process of being passed and got no advantage out of it. There will be no penalty for that. He just didn't make the corner and went on through.
Well, Jimmy Vasser tried to get Tony Kanaan to break later than he wanted to into that chicane. It didn't work, and that was a nice aggressive exchange. Nice to see some of that.
At the point, it is Franchitti, 15 seconds ahead of D'Amata, the black car there in the middle of the hairpin. Just behind D'Amata, Bruno Junqueira. So that is a battle for second place between those two boyhood friends from Brazil. And Cristiano D'Amata and Bruno Junqueira are both losing ground to Dario Franchitti, who within 7 laps must come to the pit. So must Junqueira. At 7 and change, a little more than 7 laps from now, he will be expected into the pits again. And this exchange of pit stops with enormous pressure on the Franchitti crew this time, and then a few laps after that, enormous pressure will flip back to D'Amata's crew as they have a major voice in who's going to win this race, and so do the other crews of Junqueira, Tracy, and Kanaan. All those people are actively involved as well.
Yeah, and they have a little different technique that they use. The Newman-Haas team stays with a little more of a traditional pit stop to where each of the tire changers handle their own tires, whereas some of the Team Cool Green members, Paul Tracy notably, and occasionally we also see it from Franchitti, they have the air jack man go over and help the right rear tire changer. It's something new we've seen in the series. It does save you a little bit of time.
Tony Kanaan in 5th position, now drawing away slowly but surely, it seems, from Jimmy Vasser, who has now been pushed back to the 6th spot. Kanaan would like to pull in Paul Tracy, but that's going to be perhaps a tall order. Kanaan's car is working pretty well. That last pit stop, he got no adjustments, just the necessary service as we ride with Paul Tracy. Quite obviously, for those of you at home, we have gotten the cameras back on board these cars, and we ride with Paul Tracy down toward the hairpin. And let's go down to Todd Lewis, has a report on something amiss with Christian Fittipaldi.
Running 10th, yes, Chris, but battling that car, specifically the gearbox. He's reporting in he's having trouble finding the gears and selecting them. This, of course, started at the top of the show during the parade laps when he was having difficulty with the display as to which gear he was in. He's staying out as long as he can find gears, but he is battling to find the right one at the moment.
We're on board with him right now. I'm not sure if we can listen to this, Jan, but we'll try. Here's the hairpin.
So far, so good. But it's the downshift we want to listen to. Oh, yeah, there was one gear in there when he went down. Didn't sound quite right. So it's not that he can't select the gears. It sounds like there is, I'm guessing, 4th, maybe 3rd, because he approached there in 7th gear. There's one that doesn't feel good to Christian Fittipaldi.
He runs in 10th. He's turning laps at 122, the high 122s, as opposed to 120 at the front.
Now we can see on Paul Tracy's visor cam, right in the very center, when he gets the wheel straight again, you'll see the gear indicator. It flashes a little bit just because of the visor cam, but that is what Christian Fittipaldi was missing at the beginning of the race, telling you where that indication is. And there's a lot of great information on that wheel, and obviously you can see that you're looking right through the visor, and it's not that easy to pick it up when you're in the bumpy portions of the racetrack.
This is the fastest portion of the racetrack, back toward the pits. 3 bridges you go under. I'm not sure that's part of the reference scheme, but the numbers on the left are. There goes the 100, there goes the 50, and you're in the corner. Boom, boom, boom.
And that's meters to the corner. teammate Dario Franchitti was telling me that when you slam on the brakes at 100 meters before these corners, so just the forces, like we explained in the open, are just severe.
He just finished a 1-minute 20.8 second lap in 4th place, Paul Tracy. We're in Montreal. We're in the waning laps now. We'll be back. In Montreal, we ride with Paul Tracy, the 4th place runner here, as he goes through the chicane and onto the front straightaway, turning some very representative laps the last few moments, but 36 seconds off the lead of Dario Franchitti. Into turn number 1, the casino complex, if you will, and up the hill. Paul Tracy, who's had an up and down weekend yesterday in qualifying, was disgusted with the car. This morning in the warm-up, he was happy with the car, and he's had a good race.
Yeah, they made the car softer because what would happen is he would pound the curbs, and although the car had a lot of grip because it was stiffer, anytime he'd pound over the curbs, it would just fly through the air and he'd lose all kinds of time. That's why he was so frustrated. So they have since softened up the car, and you could see when he rode the curbs there, the car was pretty smooth across it.
Those two cars you see there, those are Cristiano D'Amata and Bruno Junqueira. The space between them has remained relatively stable the last several laps. In just a couple of laps, though, Junqueira is going to have to drop off that fight and drop out a third and move into the pits for his final pit stop, they expect. Tracy is on the same schedule and will dip out of 4th place into the pits. And Franchitti, the same thing a couple of laps from now. There's Jimmy Vasser, who currently runs in 6th position. He's also due a pit stop, as is Scott Dixon in the 7th spot. Tony Kanaan, running in 5th, will be out for a while, and so will Cristiano D'Amata, who will in 11 laps or less.
Whoa, look out!
Whoa!
Yow!
Straight through the corner.
I hope he was planning to pit.
Yeah, well, we looked down there. His people were out very close as he hit the brake zone for pit in, but his people were ready for him. It was planned that Jimmy Vasser was headed there.
Well, there is another answer to our question. Not only do you gain time leaving the pits, you gain time entering the pits, because you can brake later when you're going onto pit road than you have to for the chicane. What a great example that was. He almost just drove up the back of Kanaan because he could brake later on the way to pit road. That's why these guys are getting in and out so fast.
Quick pit stop for Jimmy Vasser, and now he puts the throttle down and heads back onto the racing surface. In a minute, Paul Tracy will be out there. We may have the battle of Vasser-Tracy that was joined a couple of times earlier on in the race, rejoined here in just a few moments. That's Christian Fittipaldi.
And Christian has hot tires.
Yep, he's got warm tires. Jimmy doesn't. And he's got the position through the first of the twisty bits in the back. In fact, he draws away from him pretty briskly. Michael Andretti also right there, and so is Shinji Nakano. Andretti looks down to the inside. It's not quite there as the road is blocked, but there's another brake zone coming up that might be enticing to Mike.
Well, you know, it doesn't take that many corners to get, but look at Nakano. Nakano knows that Andretti, now see, Andretti may or may not be thinking about passing, but he was going to try it anyway because he didn't want Nakano to get him.
Nakano still has hot tires. He was out there. He may be able to pull the same thing against Vasser when they get to the hairpin right here if he's close enough.
Man, look how late Vasser brakes.
Mike lights him up. Vasser carries it in deep, and Nakano doesn't have a chance to get by him. So he's going to be caught out of those that were still on the track with warm tires. It looked like Vasser got enough heat to hold him off at least.
I think Jimmy could. He's possibly close enough to try another move here on Michael, but boy, was I impressed how late Vasser's been able to break that car and still get it turned.
So that battle continues on, although it may stabilize here in just a second. Though Nakano's got an idea or two, and here comes the race leader. Dario Franchitti is on pit road for what will be, everyone expects, his final pit stop before the 80 laps are done. He's 18 laps from the end, so he'll have plenty of fuel. Let's go to Don.
Dario Franchitti is up on the blocks. This will be his last stop, as you mentioned, Chris. Tires are on, fuel hose coming out. Now, with just a split-second delay, it looked to be about the 9-second range, and Paul Tracy will be next in line. Chris?
Junqueira also on pit road, as we had expected. Here comes Dario in front. On pit out, Junqueira getting his service. The 4 tires are on. Todd, you're there.
And it's in for Junqueira. He is away less than 10 seconds, but maybe not quite as quick as they wanted. He's been getting encouragement from Chip Ganassi on the radio. Chip's been telling him, hey, go get him.
Yeah, but that was a great stop, Todd. That was much quicker than what we saw for Dario. Now, of course, there's a big gap between the two on the racetrack, but that stop may make a big difference later on for Junqueira.
Paul Tracy, meantime, has gone into the pits and is already on his way out, having received the service, and we'll wait for it all to shuffle out, and we'll give you the standings, who gained what and where they gained it. Here's that fast piece of pavement straight in to the middle of that complex of turns called Casino down there, where they go straight to the corner, and those that are on the racetrack can't. There's the difference right there.
Yeah, that's a great example of the shortcut that's taken. Scott Dixon getting out ahead of Andretti while Christian pits.
And they were side by side in relative position when they hit pit out, and then Scott Dixon was, what, 100 yards maybe ahead of him when he got through the corner. Big difference there. So right now it is D'Amata on the point, then Frank Keating, who's had his last service, Junqueira, who's had his last service, Tony Kanaan in fourth, who needs to do another pit stop, Michel Jourdain, who is in fifth, needs to do another pit stop. Paul Tracy runs sixth, but he's had his last pit stop. Dixon in seventh, but he's had his last pit stop. Michael Andretti is eighth position, but he'll be in this lap around. Then Vassar, who's done for the day in terms of pit stops, and Takagi, who still has to have a pit stop. That rounds out the top 10, so there's still a lot to be said before this is determined. Dario Franchitti was up by 14 seconds when he came in. He came out of the pits 13 behind Cristiano D'Amata. So a 27-second swing between those two in positions 1 and 2.
Well, at least we finally confirmed our numbers.
Yeah. Well, that's what we talked about this morning,
Yeah.
you and I. So now the waiting game really is underway. Can Cristiano D'Amata get far enough away? There's Michael Andretti, as we had anticipated, coming in for what will be his final pit stop as they put it up on the jacks. 4 tires, as they must, will go on. And Don, you got that? Todd?
Michael Andretti in the 10-second range. No changes to the car. He's admitted it's kind of a mediocre day for him. He's just trying to squeeze as much out of it as he can, Chris.
Well, he'll get a couple of points, if not a few more than that, but not a contender for the win. There goes Adrian Fernandez back on. Here comes Mike out ahead of Christian Fittipaldi. So from
Tora, it looks like.
Yeah, Tora Takagi's back
wrong.
in. He had the penalty a few moments ago. Had a nice strategy going, it seemed. Could have had a top 5 finish. It was certainly a possibility, but it looks like that's all gone awry. There is the race leader, Cristiano D'Amata.
But you know, I think that Junqueira has a problem. He just went by the front straightaway, and I believe that Tony Kanaan has picked up 3rd place because Junqueira, the engine sounded very sour.
Well, Tony Kanaan listed in 3rd, and here comes Paul Tracy onto the front straightaway, while at the hairpin, the race leader, Cristiano D'Amata, moves in, and there's Takagi, the ejected driver there. A beautiful day ongoing. Behind him, the car you saw, that was Michel Jourdain. At the other end, we have Christian Fittipaldi working on Michael Andretti at the moment. Also active is Alex Tagliani in that serial of 3 cars, but losing space. Tagliani's had a difficult day. His gearbox, we don't think, is working properly. He's been off a couple of times. Now here comes Christian. Takes a peek down to the inside of Michael, but he's not able to carry it into the braking zone deep enough, and he tucks back in.
Of course, former teammates, so they know each other well.
Into the corner they go. And the carousel complex. Don Martin with Tora Takagi.
Well, he's out of the race, and the brakes are the problem. And on this course, obviously, you can't stop. You can't go, Chris.
Now, it's the first time with definitive evidence in terms of brakes, but we certainly think that there are some that have had to fight that all day long on this circuit.
And Bruno Junqueira is coming down the front straightaway now, and that car is not going to last long. That sounds very, very sick.
Still listed in 4th position, but he's probably going to give that up before too long. Paul Tracy is just about sharing the same straightaway with him now and closing fast. The last trip around was 1:35 for Junqueira as opposed to Tracy's 1:21. So Paul will pick him up fairly soon. Christian Fittipaldi, meantime, continues to hound Michael Andretti in that fight for 9th position in the event. Mike trying to save as many points as he can, as is Christian.
Oh, and he went to the fuel mixture. Oh, they want him to pit. He's thinking, man, I don't want to pit. I'm just about to get after Michael.
He didn't that time through.
Oh, you know what that is? That was the team radio for his teammate D'Amata. So now we know that D'Amata will be in next time around.
Okay, well, he had as many as 5 laps to stay out if he wanted to. but he chooses, or his team is choosing, to come apparently a little bit sooner than that. A critical pit stop. Is it the most critical of the year? Maybe not, but certainly it's huge in terms of the championship, huge in terms of this race, as the team now has the equipment over the wall. We wait for Cristiano D'Amata to come back and do his 4th pit stop. Can he save it? He stretched it out on the lighter fuel load, and now we got a lot of smoke from Junqueira's car on the straightaway.
Well, he's not paying for that engine, so he's going to stay out until it blows.
Paul Tracy behind him can see that trail of smoke, and he's closing fast.
It sounds really bad.
Cristiano D'Amata, meantime, should be around in just a little bit.
Now, he should come out of the pits, D'Amata in 2nd spot. So, you know, even with the strategy that's questionable, it's a pretty good day.
There he is, and he's into the pits. He comes in with an 18-second lead over Dario Franchitti. Let's go to the pits and cover it.
Cristiano D'Amata making, as you guys mentioned, his 4th stop. Crew will give him fuel and tires and do their best to make it as quick a stop as possible. Hits the marks right on, and the crew goes to work. A lot of brake dust coming off those 4 tires, of course, as they make the change. 4 tires are secure. Fuel is in. He's down and away. A little over 9 seconds. We'll see if it works out for Cristiano D'Amata.
Okay, there Dario is already in turn number 1, so sure enough, D'Amata's going to slot into position 2. And I would say that Dario's, well, you could maybe just see Dario. I'd say that he's going to have a bit of a lead. That's going to be tough for D'Amata to chase down.
We understand Junqueira has pulled off the course, and there was some liquid coming from the engine compartment. So he went to a safe haven and cleared the race course. Franchitti leads. D'Amata trails. The gap is about 5 seconds. We'll be back in just a moment. Bruno Junqueira out of the race. He's brought the car, the disabled car, from the Ganassi stable back to the pits and stepped away. And he had such a marvelous day going. A good finish in the offing, and then the engine went soft. We knew it was coming for several laps, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was something you could certainly hear. We're panning back, and wow, the interval has definitely closed down for Cristiano D'Amata, but it has a lot more to do with what had happened on the racetrack. And Fernandez into the wall.
Adrian Fernandez misses the corner, the kink there, and he has hit the left side of the car against the wall. And the local yellow is displayed. We'll have to wait and see what they do on the main flag stand on the front straightaway and where that car comes to a rest. We saw flashing by there Cristiano D'Amata. Now, the gap between 1st and 2nd last time through was 6.1 seconds to Dario Franchitti, and we're going to get a full course yellow as the Adrian Fernandez machine, the driver injured in Vancouver in the late running, hits the wall here in Montreal in the late going, and that had to sting a lot because he's already a very sore man. And there's fire underneath the engine compartment there, burning somewhat freely as they wait for the service vehicles to get on the scene. Let's go downstairs to Todd.
With Bruno Junqueira, your day came to a very quick end, Bruno. What was it that broke?
A very long end. I almost raced whole race again and had a problem in the car. Couldn't finish. Very frustrated. I was going to the end of the race, not finish the race. That's very frustrating.
Another frustrating end for Bruno Junqueira. Great opportunity for him to really leapfrog Patrick Carpentier in the standings goes away.
I see what happened here. There it is. He just went through the corner, Jan, and slapped the left rear first, and then the car is disabled, and he guides it down to a stop. You see the wing shorn away. The fire has been attended to. We saw flashes of that activity. The right front off the ground, and Adrian was out and actually directing the firemen through some of their exercise to get that extinguished, but apparently it's been done now.
Now, you heard me mention that Dario Franchitti did have to do some avoiding action here, and you can see in front of him there was a spin for Shinji Nakano. He had to lock up the brakes, go around the outside, didn't lose any track position but lost time. But now that there's a full course caution on the upper right, there was D'Amata, but because now it's full course yellow, it made no difference.
They'll bunch them up and then they'll dash to the finish. We're working leader lap 72 of the scheduled 80 in Montreal. Don't leave us. Adrian Fernandez has had a difficult last month. First Vancouver, toward the end of the race, tangled up in this mess, and he was heavily into the wall and had a fractured pelvis and huge bruises across his body. And at Mid-Ohio, he skipped the race. At Road America, he was able to perform, but this is the condition he was in, Jan Bika says. He climbed out of the car at the end of one of the exercises there, the crutch on hand. A great deal of pain then, a great deal of pain since, and he reported to us this morning that he was hurting, and he's been taking treatments and all kinds of medical help all along every day after every session. And just a few moments ago, he slaps the wall again. Not as hard this time, and he did climb out under his own power, but certainly that doesn't help the bruising. Let's go downstairs to Don Martin.
Thanks, Chris. Here with Derek Daly. I guess it raises the question of Adrian Fernandez's fitness to race. Any question in your mind going in today?
No, Adrian's a true professional, and he was obviously in pain out there, especially these last two circuits where there've been a lot of requirement to jump curbing and so on, and you can imagine having a really quite a painful hip and having to do that. I think he soldiered on pretty well. So we had a problem in the middle of the race, which has nothing to do with Adrian, and it partly came right during the race, and he just soldiered on. So.
Don, just further to the point, I mean, obviously he was off crutches this week and feeling pretty good. Did he aggravate any? I know in practice on Friday he went off course and was bumped around a little bit. Did he have to take any kind of freezing or medication?
You know, a sign of the way he is. I mean, we partly destroyed a chassis on one of the days here when he went over the curbs just trying to get speed. And you know, when you've got a broken hip like he has, it's got to be pretty painful. What he didn't do is he didn't ice as much as he should have, but he felt it last night. So that's just the way it goes.
You got to think he's going to be doubtful for next week in Denver.
I don't think so.
All right, Don Halliday, Team Fernandez, go back up top, Chris.
Well, drivers are tough guys, Jan, and he'll be there if he can. There's no question.
Yeah, I think he'll be all right. I mean, he's got some time to ice now. And, you know, the thing that really hurt him here was the curbs. And on street courses, you don't have very many curbs. Of course, you've got plenty of walls to hit, but you don't have a lot of curbs, and theoretically, he should be okay.
11 running. The latest retirement, Adrian Fernandez. Just before that, with an engine problem, Bruno Junqueira. Takagi stepped aside with a mechanical difficulty just before that, so 3 late retirements. Patrick Carpentier in mid-race was forced out of the top 5 and to the sidelines. Servia didn't last too long. Dominguez went out early, and Kenny Breck in the first corner, when he was bumped to the outside, suspension was broken. That was the end of his day. At the top, we have Franchitti. Cristiano D'Amato runs second. Tony Kanaan and Tracy and Dixon. Vassar, Jourdain, Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti in the 9th spot. Nakano runs 10th. Tagliani in 11th. That's the last car running, and he's in the points.
Yeah, you know, one thing that is really intriguing to me when we do go back to a restart, we know that Franchitti is in the lead. We know that D'Amato is the man with all the speed, but he does have a car between himself and Franchitti in Shinji Nakano. Now, these guys are very loyal to their manufacturers. Franchitti drives a Honda. Guess what kind of power you have for Nakano? Yes, he is a Honda factory driver. And do you think he's going to let a guy with a Toyota go through easily to challenge? I don't think so.
One might suggest that he won't. We'll know for sure in just a moment. Now, his best effort may not quite be enough to hold him off too very long, but even a little bit will help Dario Franchitti. We are working leader lap 74. When it clicks 74, we expect to have the green at the end of this straightaway. This time by is when we should go racing by all indications. We'll keep an eye on the field and the pace cars. That pulls away, and Jim Swintel will give them the decision in just a couple of moments. A shootout here. And an interesting pit strategy day from D'Amato's side in particular. His car a little lighter in terms of fuel at this point. Is it enough to make a significant difference? Could very well be.
Well, you know, also what Franchitti is doing, he's bringing everybody up really slow, and that could help his cause here on the restart.
They're in the chicane. They're on the straight. Nakano is between the two front runners, and the green is out. The acceleration is underway. Franchitti leads the charge into turn number 1. And it is Dixon and Tracy and Kanaan all over D'Amato as well. They'd like to get by him, so he's got to look forward and back. Franchitti only has to look at open roadway in front of him and check his mirrors. Up the hill they go to turn number 3. Cristiano D'Amata still caught behind Nakano. Franchitti moves away a few car lengths.
Well, you know,
with Tracy.
I think this is the answer that we were talking about, is that D'Amata is fast as all get all when he's out there in front, but when he has somebody in front of him, the car is not good in traffic.
There you see the gap. He's the 3rd one in line, the black car. 4th belongs to Tony Kanaan. Paul Tracy next, and then Dixon.
Now, Shinji is not doing anything. I mean, he's not deliberately holding back. And boy, Paul Tracy was sideways on the approach.
Big twitch from Paul Tracy in the entry to the hairpin. Let's look at the space at the end of the straightaway. Does Dario Franchitti have even more advantage this trip?
Oh! Shinji Nakano now is going to have to slow down because he shortcut the chicane. So if there was any indication that maybe Shinji Nakano was going to move out of the way, no way. He got into the chicane so late that he actually shortcut it. Now, of course, he has to slow down. Well, actually, that's kind of convenient. Oh, I have to slow down now and give up some gap. And I conveniently am slowing down Cristiano a little bit more.
Well, from the start, when Franchitti beat D'Amata to the line by 9/10, it's now grown out to a 2.5 that trip. So Franchitti made decent use of the traffic behind and the clear track ahead. 75 laps are done, 5 to go.
And, you know, it's not just D'Amata who's having trouble in traffic, just the aerodynamic setup of these cars. As D'Amata now does clear Nakano, Nakano has pulled out of the way, and I would imagine that he probably got some instruction from the pit saying, you know what, get out of the way.
Kanaan got through, so did Paul Tracy. So the first 4 on the track are the first 4 in the race. Let's check again. Yeah, the first 5 on the track are the first 5 in the race. Dixon cleared, so did Vassar. So Nakano giving ground to everyone.
Yeah, and my guess is that Cart got on the horn and said, you are not on the leader lap. We want you out of there. If you don't, you're going to get a penalty. The team relayed the information. Again, I'm just speculating, and because he pulled out of the way in a hurry. But you know what? The damage is done. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. He didn't deliberately block D'Amata, but D'Amata is really going to have to stand on the gas now to close this gap with 5 to go.
He's got about a half a straightaway, does Dario Franchitti, as the gap grew out to, let's wait for it, 2.6. He got 1.2 seconds that lap, first to second. D'Amata lights up the right front as he breaks into Casino. Kanaan, Tracy, and Dixon funnel through in order, then Vassar. But Dario Franchitti with a 1:21.7, a very quick lap, the quickest of any of them, drew away from them all, including D'Amata. The lead is 2.6. 76 laps are done, less than 4 to go.
And Paul Tracy is a guy who desperately would love to be on the podium for the Canadian fans here. And of course, Tony Kanaan is the guy he'll have to get through. They have I was going to say that, you know, they spend a lot of time racing together. They both have similar aggressive styles. That's not going to be easy for Paul Tracy, but I don't think he's going to leave anything on the table.
You see the space between Kanaan just through the picture, and there's Paul. There's the gap at the hairpin. Franchitti's through. D'Amata's in the middle of it, and already Franchitti is moving, and now we get on board with Paul. That's Tony Kanaan ahead. Long straightaway here. Not close enough to consider any kind of move against Kanaan. It's just not available. Not yet. We'll see what the gap is there when they hit the stripe. Franchitti's on the home straight. There's Dixon. There's Vassar. They're through the corner. The gap this time goes from 2.6 to 3.1. Another half second for Franchitti. He's driving away from Cristiano D'Amata head-to-head now.
Yeah, starting to see some smoke from Dixon. Remember, his teammate. Oh, that's out the back of the car. I wonder if that's putting moisture on the racetrack. But, boy, tough day for the Target team. Both appear to be engine-related. He's going to get off the track.
Vassar moves by Jourdain, and now everyone, as Scott Dixon gives it up, and another retirement for a relatively, well, a similar reason to Bruno Junqueira a while ago from the same team.
That moves Vassar, not yet, but when he crosses the line, that'll move him up to 5th. So a nice recovery for Jimmy Vassar, who's been struggling of late.
Jimmy Vassar, who had a somewhat satisfying finish a week ago after a lot of struggles and the inability for a while to get through the early portions of a race, had something to talk about last week after Road America. Although it wasn't a podium, it was at least a finish, and for him that was a step forward the way the summer has gone. And another one here apparently in Montreal, perhaps a top 3 if he gets real lucky, but certainly a top 5 at this point. There's the leader through the chicane. Here comes second place D'Amata, followed by Kanaan. It was 3.1 last trip through. Let's see what it is here. Franchitti on the lights. D'Amata approaching the lights at the end of the pit straight under the flag stand. 3.159. Relatively stable that trip. Franchitti gained just a little bit, but D'Amata didn't get any back, and that's important. Less than 2 to go.
Yeah, and we've talked about Dario Franchitti and his sort of love-hate relationship with this whole weekend. We've talked about how he's been grumpy. He said he didn't like the track, he didn't like the car, he was frustrated, but he couldn't have a day better than this. His teammate Paul Tracy, desperate to try and get himself up on the podium, but we saw him try really hard on the restart. I'm not sure that Paul Tracy's got much left in that car.
He's got 1.7 seconds to get to Kanaan, which would be the last podium spot at the moment. That may be too tall an order. Kanaan, you can see there, the third car right now, Tony Kanaan, and then comes Paul Tracy. That's a lot of real estate to make up. White flag this time by for Dario Franchitti and the rest of them. That's what we expect as we jump back on board with Paul Tracy off the hairpin, up through the gearbox. Next to last time for him and the rest of them. Here comes Dario.
Plus 3.1 P1. That's a nice sign to get.
Into the straightaway cleanly. A little conservative on the exit, actually. He gave himself plenty of room, and why not? Gap was 3.159. Last time through, this time it's 3.034. He gave up a tenth or so.
He might try this new attitude coming into more races, because he is normally such a positive, happy. I mean, he just loves racing, great guy. But it's funny. It just throughout this weekend, he just hasn't been in the best of spirits. But boy, talk about cheering a guy up. This will definitely do it.
Look quickly there at Paul Tracy as he soldiers on in 4th place, Vassar in 5th, 6th to Georgian, and then Christian Fittipaldi. The race leader, there he is, Dario Franchitti, as he moves through toward the hairpin one more time. 79 laps are done. We're about ready to see a victory in Montreal for the first time for these cars. A magnificent racing day, a lot of interesting strategy. They play back and forth in the battle among the pit crews, and now Dario Franchitti leads the field through the final laps. Just a few more turns and he'll be there. Off the hairpin he comes. Down the straightaway. There's the gap back to second place. Second place is going to be awfully valuable to Cristiano D'Amata in terms of the championship. He'd like to win. It's not going to happen, apparently, into the final couple of turns and straightening it out. 79 laps are done, a couple of 100 yards, and it'll be 80. There it is. The double checkered flag for Dario Franchitti. He has won in Montreal. He's won in Vancouver in this season. He's also won in Toronto in his career. A Canadian triple for the Scotsman, Dario Franchitti. A brilliantly executed race, a wonderfully rewarding afternoon. Second to D'Amata, the third podium spot to Tony Kanaan. A big moment for him in what's been a very disappointing season, especially the summer portion of it. Nice race.
It was interesting, and I think the pit strategy definitely threw a bit of a wrinkle into this that we didn't expect.
Paul Tracy, who yesterday afternoon was absolutely star-crossed. He couldn't figure out what was wrong with the car. He warmed up this morning very well and worked his way from what he considered to be far further back in the field than he ought to be. 10th starting spot, finishes in 4th, and another good solid run for Jimmy Vassar as he and his team at Rahal Racing get to know each other more and more, and they're sort of sorting things out. I think the pace of sorting has been too slow for Jimmy's tastes, but at least the last couple of weeks he got to the end and he was inside the top 10 with room to spare.
And they're doing it collectively because Michel Jourdain finished right behind him. So the two are working together. They enjoy each other. They share data. And it is nice to see him, because certainly you would say that Jimmy Vassar and Michel Jourdain have deserved it at the kind of positions. And boy, they have been struggling of late. It's great to see him back. Paul Tracy with some nice burnouts. Of course, he'd love to be on the podium, but he's still going to show off for the fans.
Speaking of Michel Jourdain, 6th place for him unofficially. He is the only driver in this corps that has scored points in every event in the 2002 season. And when you consider where he had been in terms of point scoring finishes the first several years of his career, this year...
Oh, they're asking for donuts.
breakthrough.
You could see the fans saying,
yeah.
we want donuts.
And they're going to get them, I would think.
Well, I thought we were going to get them.
Is he setting up for them?
Oh, he's egging them on. He's saying, come on.
Come on. Ask me more. There it is. Just a burnout.
That's spaghetti.
Okay.
No donuts
Fair
yet.
enough. Fair enough. A joyous victory lap for Dario Franchitti as he pauses and does a little burnout in front of the huge crowd down at the hairpin. And there's so many. There's Paul Tracy waiting for his teammate to arrive in the pits. Paul has already parked his racer and gotten out. Got to be somewhat satisfied with the day, certainly. 4th place, 12 points in the championship. And here comes Dario onto the pit road and approaching his crew and everybody waiting to greet the winner here in Montreal in the inaugural kart event on this circuit. And this will be on his resume a very, very special moment, one with an asterisk. And another burnout. He gets congratulations from Paul Tracy, and there's Don. Don?
If you had a message for it, what would be your message to Dario?
I'm happy for him. You know, he's in the middle of trying to put something together for kart, and it's good for him to get a win. I mean, it's been an up and down season for the whole team, and you know, we didn't have the fuel mileage today to be able to compete with some of the guys, but Dario had a fantastic race, and it's great for the team.
Now, for you personally, your best result since Vancouver, where you were second, did you get the most out of the car? Because I know you had some problems during the weekend.
I got the most out of the car handling-wise, but we just didn't have the fuel mileage that the other guys had, and our pit stops were, you know, not as good as I think because we had to take on so much fuel. But, you know, we were racing Kanan really for position, and we just didn't get the mileage that it took to beat him out of the pits.
By and large, satisfied with the weekend?
Yeah, very satisfied. I mean, we had an up and down rocky weekend to come home 4th, get some points, and Dario win was great.
Let's go to the winner's circle with Todd Lewis.
Dario Franchitti has victories in Vancouver, victories in Toronto, and he is the inaugural winner of the Molson, Indy, and Montreal. Congratulations, and now a 2nd place challenger in the point standings. Well done.
Thank you. What can I tell you? What a great day. You know, we knew the car was good this morning. We just went out there and just attacked every lap today. My guys did perfect pit stops. Great for Team Cole Green. I tell you, I don't know what to say. A great crowd there, you know, today. Thank you. I love racing in Canada.
You talked early in the weekend that you were perhaps not that pleased with this course. A lot of chicanes. Was it you that was having trouble with them, or the car that was having a little trouble with them at first?
It wasn't I didn't like the car. We didn't get the car working right. Up until just before qualifying yesterday, and we got the thing working really well over the chicanes, and this is the result. You know, a great team effort from my guys at Team Cole Green, and yeah, feels good.
You didn't let Cristiano D'Amato catch you today in the race. Can you catch him in the championship standings?
That's going to be hard. That's going to be hard, but we'll keep at it.
Congratulations, Dario Franchitti is the inaugural winner of the Molson Indy Montreal.
Dario Franchitti comes home 2.5 seconds ahead of Cristiano D'Amato in the 2nd position, followed on the podium by Tony Kanaan. A brilliant result for him and Morris Nunn Racing. Paul Tracy in 4th spot. Pretty satisfying day for him. Then Jimmy Vassar in the 5th position. Michel Jourdain in the 6th spot, followed by Christian Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Shinji Nakano, and Dixon. Then Tagliani in the points, Fernandez in the points, Junqueira, Takagi, Carpentier, Servia, Dominguez, and Bracken. There's more.
A 2nd place finish. It's not another victory for Cristiano D'Amato, but Cristiano, another terrific run for you. It does help your championships situation, accumulating a lot of points again today.
Yeah, I'm of course very happy with the result. I know my major opponents up to this race. I mean, I consider 3 of them, Dario, Pat, and Bruno. 2 of them didn't finish. Dario won the race, but I was still able to extend my lead. So I'm very happy. Of course, race win is a race win, but podium finish is very important for the championship.
Very important for the championship. Did the team perhaps make a mistake in having you come in for that early pit stop? It didn't play out the way you wanted.
Well, that situation is the kind of situation that would have worked in maybe 70% of the times. Today it didn't, but I think the team did a great job. My car had an engine problem, you know, less than 2 hours before the start of the race. They changed the engine. Engine ran the whole day beautiful. The car had run without any trouble the whole day. So I'm quite happy. Really, the way everything went was quite good for us.
Cristiano D'Amato, it's not another victory, but he does extend his championship lead. Jim? Thanks for coming on, the third member of the podium. You like running in Canada too, don't you?
Oh yeah, I love Canada, and my 2 podiums came here, and I'm really happy. This crowd was unbelievable. I need to say thanks to them, thanks to Moso, because they put a great show, and we just did our best. I mean, now we have a time to go celebrate with all these beautiful fans. I mean, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful weekend.
Maybe you'd like to see a 4th race in Canada.
Oh, let's do a whole championship. Why not?
Tony Kanaan, 3rd place on the podium. Congratulations here in Montreal.
Thank you.
Tagliani, aggressive from the start, and maybe took yourself out of the race because of that aggression. What can you say about it?
No, it was not because of that. Because the way the race went, even with that, at a certain point after the first pit stop, I was 2 positions behind D'Amato, and D'Amato finished 2nd, I think. So I don't think the pass was aggressive, but everybody is aggressive. I think the start of the race was the key. I got hit from behind, and you know, it got my rear tire got really knocked, and the alignment was really bad. And after that, we lost the gears. That's pretty much what decided the race, the gearbox.
Alex Tagliani, nonetheless, managed 5 today. Satisfied with the weekend effort?
Not really. No, you're never satisfied in motor racing, but we're making progress with the team, and I feel like we let a podium finish slip away.
How so?
A little bit here and there. Got caught behind PT for a long time, lost a lot of time in then one stint, and then just having to dice with guys on the out laps and losing a couple seconds here and there. And Tony got 3rd, got on the podium, and he drove a hell of a race. But I think we should have been farther up the road than him.
Veteran driver, give me your impression of this event overall and the track in Montreal and how it suits the kart, because there was a lot of discussion about how it would compare with F1 and the kind of show you guys would put on here.
Well, I guess the comparison is up to the fans, really, as far as the show goes. But, I love the circuit. I love Canada. The race fans are very good and enthusiastic and knowledgeable. I've raced up here quite a bit. I mean, they had a great crowd here all weekend long, and you got to hand it to Molson and players and the people that put these kind of events on. I think it was one of our premier events.
Jimmy Vassar, Team Rahal, 5th place finish in the points today. Jim?